What is the deeper meaning of symbolic language in biblical prophecy? Imagine trying to understand a message written in a secret code. That's what symbolic language in biblical prophecy is like. It's a way God uses images and symbols to share truths that go beyond simple words. When prophets like Daniel or Zechariah used symbols such as beasts or olive trees, they weren't just describing events happening at the moment. They were pointing to bigger ideas about kingdoms, leadership, and future hope. These symbols often carry layers of meaning that unfold over time, making the message richer and more meaningful. In the Old Testament, prophets used symbolic language to prepare people for the coming of the Messiah. For example, the prophet Isaiah described the Messiah as a suffering servant, using images that show sacrifice and humility. These symbols help us see that the Messiah's role isn't just about political power but about spiritual salvation. The symbols also connect past events with future promises, creating a continuous story of God's plan for his people. In the books of the Old Testament that focus on history and prophecy, symbols serve as a bridge between what is seen and what is unseen. They help believers understand that God's plans are bigger than any single event or nation. For instance, the visions in the book of Daniel about beasts and kingdoms show how worldly powers rise and fall, but God's sovereignty remains constant. These images reminded us that history is part of a divine story, and that God is ultimately in control. Moving into the New Testament, especially in the book of Revelation, symbolic language becomes even more vivid. John's visions use symbols like the dragon, the lamb, and the 7 seals to reveal future events. These symbols aren't meant to be taken literally but as representations of spiritual realities. They invite us to look beyond the surface and understand the ongoing battle between good and evil, and the hope of Christ's return. The deeper purpose of using symbols in biblical prophecy is to communicate truths that are too big for plain words. Symbols help us grasp the infinite nature of God's plans and his ways that are higher than ours. They also encourage us to reflect it and seek understanding, knowing that the message is layered and unfolds over time. Recognizing these symbols helps us see that prophecy isn't just about predicting the future but about understanding God's ongoing work in history and in our lives. So, the real meaning behind symbolic language in biblical prophecy is that it's a way for God to speak to us across generations. It's a method that makes divine truths accessible, memorable, and meaningful. Symbols point us to the bigger picture, God's plan for salvation, his sovereignty over history, and the hope of a future where his promises are fulfilled. They challenge us to look deeper, to reflect it, and to trust that God's message is always unfolding in ways that we can understand if we seek him with an open heart.